isang tao sa drone strike sa gusali ng Embahada ng Estados Unidos sa Tel Aviv.
Inako naman ng mga Houthi Yemeni rebels ang ginawang pag-atake sa embahada. Mga detalye ng balita ibabahagi maya-maya. Magandang gabi, ako po si Ricky Macay.
At ako si Nina Richie Alagaw Flores. Ito ang mata ng Agila International. Para naman sa mga headlines ngayong Biyernes ng gabi.
Mahigit 6% na pagtaas sa ekonomiya ng Pilipinas na itala ng Marcos administration.
Pilipinas at Australia muling nagpatibay ng commitment para sa kapayapaan sa rehiyon.
Former U.S. President Barack Obama at iba pang Democrats pinipilit si Pangulong Joe Biden na isuko na ang presidential race.
Major international flights, mga bangko at telecommunications apektado ng IT outage sa buong mundo.
At Paris, handang-handa na para sa 2024 Olympics. Tumaas ng mahigit 6% ang ekonomiya ng Pilipinas sa ilalim ng Marcos administration.
Ayon sa ilang economic managers, nadagdagan ang economic growth ng bansa sa pangatlong quarter ng 2022 hanggang unang quarter ng 2024. Nalamangan din ng Pilipinas ang ilan sa mga bansa sa Asia katulad ng Indonesia, Malaysia, Singapore at Thailand pagdating sa economy expansion. Batay naman sa sinabi ng Development Budget Coordination Committee, inaasahan nila ang tuloy-tuloy na pag-arangkada ng ekonomiya ng Pilipinas hanggang taong 2025. Inaasahan na lalago pa mula sa 6 to 7% ngayong taon sa 6 o 7.5% ang ekonomiya sa susunod na taon.
Nagbigay babala ang Philippine National Police sa mga rallyista ang magsusunog ng effigy sa araw ng State of the Nation address o SONA ni Pangulong Ferdinand Marcos Jr. Ayon kay Information Office Chief Police Colonel Jean Fajardo, aarestuhin ang mga lalabag sa ilalim ng Section 13 ng Batas Pambansa o BP 880 sa sinumang magsusunog ng anumang bagay sa lansangan. Paliwanag ni Colonel Fajardo, layo ng batas na ito na maprotektahan ang mga mamamayan sa mga ganitong aktibidad na nagiging sanhi rin ng polusyon sa kapaligiran. Dagdag pa niya, hindi ito pagpipigil sa kalayaang makapagpahayag na lamang nila na nasusunod ang limitasyon ng freedom of expression.
Nagbabala ang Department of Agriculture sa publiko laban sa mga avian influenza o bird flu vaccines na ibinebenta online. Sinabi ni Agriculture Assistant Secretary Arnel de Mesa na hindi nila nire-rekomenda ang pagbili ng mga bird flu vaccines online dahil ito ay bawal. Anya ay pinagbabawal ang kahit anong gamot na hindi dumaan sa proseso o hindi regulated ng Food and Drug Administration at ng Bureau of Animal Industry. Payo ni de Mesa, dapat ay bumili ang publiko sa mga mapagkakatiwalaang sources of vaccines. Nauna nang naglabas ng kaparehong babala ang Bureau of Animal Industry laban sa bird flu vaccines na ibinebenta ngayon sa iba't ibang online shopping platforms. Sa isang online platform ay maaaring makabili ng 100 ml ng avian influenza H5N1 vaccine dose sa halagang 423 pesos. Ang 200 ml na vaccine dose ay ibinebenta naman ng mga online sellers sa halagang 790 pesos. Ayon kay De Mesa, maaaring may mga panganib kapag gumagamit ng naturang unregulated products dahil ang bird flu ay highly pathogenic. Ibinabala pa niya na kung hindi tama ang bakuna, maaari itong makalason sa isang tao at maging sa mga hayop.
Formal na inilipat ni Vice President Sara Duterte ang pamumuno ng Department of Education o DepEd sa bagong sekretary na si Senator Juan Edgardo Angara. Ginanapan turnover ceremony sa DepEd Central Office sa Pasig City, isang araw bago magkabisa ang resignation ni Duterte. Umaasa si Duterte na ipagpapatuloy ni Angara ang pagsusuri ng kurikulum at ang institusyonalisasyon ng mga alternatibong paraan ng pagtuturo. Kasama rin ang iba pang mga pangunahing agenda para sa sektor ng edukasyon. Samantala, nangako si Angara na isusulong niya ang kapakanan ng mga mag-aaral at guro. Ipagpapatuloy din niya ang mahahalagang programa na inilunsad ni Duterte.
Iniulat ng Philippine Institute of Volcanology and Seismology of PHIVOLCS ang biglaang phreatic eruption sa bulkang Mayon noong July 18. Ayon sa PHIVOLCS, ang pagsabog ay tumagal lamang ng mas mababa sa 1 minuto. Nagbunga ito ng usok at abo na umabot sa tinatayang taas na 200 meters. Ikinategorya ang pagsabog bilang isang phreatic event na nangangahulugang ito ay dulot ng steam sa halip na magma. Samantala, pinayuhan ng ahensya ang mga residente sa lugar na mag-ingat at manatiling alerto.
Walang karapatan si suspended Bamban Mayor Alice Guo para diktahan ang mga mambabatas kung anong mga issue ang dapat unahin. Ito ang matapang na sagot ni Senate President Francis Chiz Escudero matapos imongkahi ni Guo na dapat pagsikapan ng Senado na unahin ang mga kritikal na issue sa bansa, kagaya ng seguridad at kahirapan.
Pero unawain at intindihin niya na wala siya sa lugar na mamili kung ano ang pupuntahan at hindi pupuntahan base sa kanyang personal na ideya. Kung nag-issue ng warrant ang Senado, dumaan yan sa proseso.
Patutsada ni Guo sa social media, dadalo lamang siya sa isang fair trial and proper forum kung may ebidensya na laban sa kanya. Giit pa niya, ayaw niya magamit sa political ambitions ng iba. Depensa naman ni Escudero, hindi maikakaila na may obligasyon si Guo na pangalagaan at protektahan ang sarili nito. Subalit ang Senado ay may obligasyon na trabaho na pangalagaan at protektahan ang interes ng sambayanan. Wala rin anyang karapatan ang suspended mayor na mamili kung saang forum dadalo. Matatanda ang 2 beses nang inisnab ni Guo ang Senate hearings ukol sa mga illegal na pogo. Naniniwala rin si Escudero na tila walang balak na sumuko si Guo at senyales lamang ito na mayroon siyang itinatago.
Well, may prinsipyo sa batas na flight is evidence of guilt. Ang kawalan ng kagustuhang sumuko at voluntaryong magpakita at sumagot sa mga simpleng katanungan, bagaman hindi sa pinapwersang umamin, ay pagpapakita na marahil ay may tinatago siya, may iniiwasan siya, at meron sa mga katanungan na ayaw sagutin o harapin. Alalahanin ninyo, hindi ito warrant of arrest para sa ikulong at parusahan kaugnay sa isang ginawang krimen. Ito'y warrant of arrest para tiyakin ang kanyang pagdalo sa pagdinig.
Halos 80 Chinese nationals ang inaresto ng National Bureau of Investigation ng NBI dahil sa pagtatrabaho sa isang pabrika sa Bulacan nang walang kaukulang mga dokumento. Isinagawa ng NBI ang isang operasyon matapos makatanggap ng ulat tungkol sa mga dayuhang nagtatrabaho sa pabrika sa Bulacan. Kasama ng ahensya sa operasyon ang Bureau of Immigration o BI at ang Presidential Anti-Organized Crime Commission. Kinuha nila ang mga undocumented na empleyado, mga empleyadong nagtatrabaho sa ilalim ng tourist visa at 6 na opisyal ng kumpanya. Sinabi rin ng NBI na sasampahan nila ng kaso ang sino mang nag-hire sa mga dayuhan. Makikipag-ugnayan sila sa BI para sa investigasyon sa kung paano nakapasok ang mga dayuhan sa bansa.
Pinagtibay ng Armed Forces of the Philippines or AFP at Australian Defence Force o ADF ang kanilang ugnayan sa pagsusulong ng kapayapaan at katatagan sa rehiyon. Ayon kay AFP spokesperson Colonel Circes Trinidad, nagbigay ng pangako sina General Romeo Browner Jr. at Admiral David Johnston ang bagong ADF chief. Binigyang diin ng 2 opisyal ang kahalagahan na matagal ng pakikipagtulungan ng 2 bansa. Pinatatag din nila ang kooperasyon sa iba't ibang inisyatiba na naglalayong higit pang mapalakas ang mga aktibidad sa pagitan ng AFP and ADF. Asahan ang posibleng bariyang taas sa presyo ng gasolina sa susunod na linggo.
Batay sa 4 na araw na pagtataya ng Department of Energy Oil Industry Management Bureau, posibleng hindi gumalaw o tumaas lamang ng 20 sentimos ang presyo ng kada litro sa gasolina. 30 sentimos hanggang 60 sentimos naman ang asahang magiging kaltas sa presyo kada litro ng diesel. Ang kerosene ay nasa 60 hanggang 70 sentimos ang bagsak presyo ng kada litro. Susunod, Vietnam naghain ng apela sa UN para sa teritoryo sa West Philippine Sea.
Von der Leyen inihalal muli bilang Pangulo ng European Commission.
At Biden hinikayat ng Democratic Party na umatras sa eleksyon. Mga detalye ng mga balitang yan sa pagbabalik ng Mata ng Agila International.
This portion. Mukhang may road trip ang tropa. So, sino ang sasama?
Bilisan nyo na nga mag-impake ng
Tapos na ako, ikaw ang matagal
Para
eh.
hindi tayo maunahan doon sa magandang upuan sa van.
Yan lang dala mo?
Sabi ni Sir Lloyd, backlight lang dapat.
Parang bigat ng dala ko. Bawasan ko na lang.
Kasi lahat,
Ang na siguro to, no?
Magaan? Eh bakit may extra kayong kasama?
may baka mayo!
Nora, kilala mo to?
Tapon pa ako tumatawag sa iyo eh. Kaso lang...
Ano, naglayas ka? Halika nga dito!
Baka hinahanap na yan. Eh ito, sino naman ang hinahanap niya?
Sinong hinahanap mo? Si Daphne? Sino daw naghahanap?
Ako po si Danny. Kaibigan niya po ako.
Kalabo-labo na. Kaya panoorin at alamin ang mga exciting na kaganapan sa Goodwill Season 4. Dito lang sa Net 25. This portion is brought to you by Robic Builders.
Nalalapit na ang pinaka-aabangang pagharap ni Pangulong Bongbong Marcos sa sambayan ng Pilipino para sa ikatlong State of the Nation Address o SONA na gaganapin na sa darating na July 22. Tatalakayin sa pagtitipon ang mga problema na kinakaharap ng bansa, kalakip ang mga detalye para sa hakbang na gagawin ito. Gayunpaman, 1 taon na rin ang nakalipas nang isagawa ni PBBM ang kanyang ikalawang SONA na pinanood at sinubaybayan ng libu-libong mga Pilipino. Kasunod nito ang katanungan sa kung ano na nga ba ang mga mahahalagang bagay na kanyang nabanggit at ipinangako para sa bayan. Balikan natin at muli natin pag-usapan kung ang mga planong inilatag ng Pangulo sa nakaraang SONA ay natupad o nanatili na lamang bilang isang alaala. Binanggit ni PBBM sa unang bahagi ng ikalawang SONA ang mga plano niya ukol sa usapin ng agrikultura, ekonomiya at mga infrastruktura na nakatakdang ipatayo. Sinabi rin niya na ang nakaraang pandemya at mga digmaang nangyayari sa ibang mga bansa ay labis na nakakaapekto sa mga paggalaw ng mga pandaigdigang merkado.
Today, I stood here before you, setting forth the plans that we have to improve our economy, bring jobs to our people, improve the ease of doing business, recalibrate our educational system to adapt to the new economy, lower and rationalize energy costs, boost agricultural production, enhance healthcare, and continue social programs for the poor and the vulnerable. Maraming kaganapan sa mundo ang nakapagpagulos sa maayos na takbo ng pandaigdigang merkado. Bukod sa digmaan sa Ukraine, naroon ang patuloy na epekto ng pandemya. Pinalala pa ito ng pagbabawas ng produksyon ng mga bansang pinagkukuhanan natin ng langis. Nang tumaas ang presyo nito, nagsumura na rin ang presyo ng iba't ibang bilihin, ang gasolina, ang kuryente at ang pagkain.
Ibinahagi rin ng Pangulo na patuloy ang ginagawa niyang pakikipagpulong sa iba't ibang mga bansa para palakasin ang ekonomiya ng Pilipinas. Anya, sa 13 foreign trips niya sa 10 mga bansa ay nakapagdala ito ng 71 bilyong dolyar kasama na ang 175,000 na trabaho para sa mga Pilipino.
Our existing bilateral and multilateral trade agreements, notably within the ASEAN framework, and with Japan and with Europe, and allow us to leverage our competitive advantages and reap economic benefits. We will continue to forge more of these international partnerships that will lead to a more balanced trade strategy and a healthier economic position. The Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership, or RCEP, is now in force. It is a multilateral trade arrangement with the ASEAN and other countries such as Australia, China, Japan, Korea, and New Zealand. We can now have competitive access to a regional market that comprises 2 billion people.
Ayon sa datos na inilabas ng Philippine Statistics Authority ay tumaas ng 6.4% sa first quarter ng 2023 ang gross domestic product ng Pilipinas. Ito ay dahil sa tuloy-tuloy na bilateral and multilateral agreements na isinasagawa sa mga bansa na mula sa East Asia at maging sa Southeast Asia. Binigyan din rin niya ang ginagawang plano ng gobyerno para pataasin ang produksyon ng enerhiya sa Pilipinas sa pamamagitan ng mga renewable sources. Bukod po dito, target din ng administrasyon na mapataas ang renewable energy source patungo sa 35% na inaasahang maabot sa taong 2030 habang 50% naman sa 2040. Kasunod ito ng pagtanggap ng Pilipinas sa 126 na karagdagang renewable energy contracts na mula sa mga proyekto ng foreign investment.
We finally have a unified national grid with the interconnection of the Luzon, Visayas, and Mindanao grids. The one grid, one market will enable more efficient transfers and more competitive pricing of electricity throughout the country. However, 68 grid connections are much delayed, according to the ERC's count. We are conducting a performance review of our private concessionaire, the National Grid Corporation of the Philippines. We look to NGCP to complete all of its deliverables, starting with the vital Mindanao, Visayas, and Cebu Negros Panay interconnections.
Ipinangako naman ni PBBM na hindi na magkakaroon ng karagdagang bayad ang Kadiwa stores dahil sa tulong na rin na binibigay nito sa mga magsasaka at mga mamimili. Ang pagpapatayo sa Kadiwa store ay unang ipinakilala ng kanyang ama na bahagi ng program sa usaping agrikultura na makabili sa mas mababang presyo ng mga produkto. Aabot naman sa 1.8 milyong pamilyang Pilipino ang tumatangkilik sa 7,000 kadiwa stores na itinayo sa iba't ibang lugar sa Pilipinas. Dagdag pa po rito ay nasa 700 million pesos ang kitang nakukuha ng kadiwa store kung saan ay nakapagbigay ito ng 3,000 jobs para sa mga miyembro ng kooperatiba. Sa kabilang banda, sinabi niya rin na tumaas ang unemployment rate ng 95.7% sa buwan ng Marso taong 2023. Ito ay bahagi ng mga programang inilaan ng gobyerno para sa mga Pilipinong walang trabaho. Kabilang sa mga programang ito ay ang Social Pension for Indigent Senior Citizens, Social Equity, Cash for Work for Persons with Disabilities, and Integrated Livelihood Programs, kabuhayan para sa mga nagnanais na makapagtayo ng maliliit na pangkabuhayan. Kasama pa sa mahalagang paksa na nabanggit ng Pangulo ay ang patuloy na pagpapatayo ng mga karagdagang classrooms and facilities sa elementary and high school. Bukas rin para sa mga estudyante ng high school ang Science and Technology Scholarship na tatanggal hanggang sa graduate school. Anya ay nasa 50% or that's 4.1 million na mga college students sa bansa ang ngayon ay nakikinabang at nakakapag-aral ng libre mula sa Universal Access to Quality Tertiary Education Program.
We will not let a student's financial constraints be an hindrance to his or her education. We have activated social safety nets such as skills development training and youth employment programs. Tertiary education in state universities and colleges will remain free for our qualified students. Last year, out of the 4.1 million enrolled college students, almost 50% were beneficiaries of the country's free higher education under the Universal Access to Quality Tertiary Education program. Deserving and talented students without the financial capacity to attend school will not be left behind in this education agenda.
Sa usaping pangkalusugan naman po, sinabi ni PBBM na nakapaglunsad ang gobyerno ng tinatawag na food stamp program kung saan ay makatatanggap ang mga mahihirap na Pilipino ng pagkain na nagkakahalaga ng 3,000 piso. Matagumpay din ang naging resulta ng Philippine Health Insurance Corporation's Consulta Package. Ito ay matapos tumaas ang bilang ng mga free dialysis sessions mula sa 19 noong 2022 at naging 156 na. Samantala, naniniwala ang Pangulo na makakatulong ng lubos sa bansa ang programa ng Build Better More. Kasunod nito ay plano niyang gamitin ang Maharlika Investment Fund bilang pondo sa pagpapatayo ng mga kalsada, tulay, seaports, airports at iba pang infrastruktura.
One of the keys to continuing economic growth is infrastructure development. So we will build better and more. Our 8.3 trillion peso Build Better More program is currently in progress and being vigorously implemented. Ang buong bansa ay makikinabang sa 174 na proyekto sa ilalim ng programang ito. Hindi lamang natin pinapagpatuloy ang mga nasimulan ng mga proyekto, lalo pa natin pinapalawak. Kaya naman, ang 123 proyekto dito sa Build Better More program ay bago.
Sa dami ng problema na nararanasan at kinakaharap ng bansa, ang mga ganitong programa ay siyang nagsisilbing sandigan na baka naman sa susunod na mga araw ay maginhawa na ang buhay. Mga pangakong pinanghahawakan at inaasahan ng bawat mamamayang Pilipino na makakapagpabago sa kanilang pang-araw-araw na buhay. Sana nga lamang po ay ang mga planong ito ay maramdaman at hindi lamang mapako sa salitang plano.
Sa ibang balita, naghain ng apela ang Vietnam sa United Nations para sa isang extended continental shelf sa South China Sea. Ayon sa pahayag ng Vietnamese Foreign Ministry ay hinihiling ng Vietnam na ilayo ang kanilang continental shelf magmula sa mainland mass ng Vietnam papunta sa kanilang relevant baseline sa kanilang nasasakupang katubigan. Kasama sa dokumento ang mga patibay ng anilang soberanya ng Vietnam o sa Huang Sa o ang tinatawag nating Paracel Islands at ang Truong Sa na kilala naman bilang Spratlys. Ang mga isla sa West Philippine Sea ay inaangkin ng maraming bansa sa Asia, kabilang ang China, Taiwan, Brunei at Malaysia. Ayon din sa Foreign Ministry ng Vietnam, ay nagpadala ng note verbal ang ahensya sa Secretary General ng UN ukol sa posisyon ng naturang continental shelf. Nagpakita naman ng matibay na oposisyon ng Taiwan ukol sa galaw ng Vietnam.
Off-air ngayon ang mga istasyon ng balita sa Bangladesh dahil sa marahas na pag-aaklas ng mga estudyante laban sa mga kota para sa mga trabaho sa gobyerno. 32 katao na ang iniulat na nasawi sa protesta ngayong linggo. Gumamit ng tear gas ang mga pulis upang paalisin ang mga nagpoprotesta sa ilang lugar. Habang ang mga nagpoprotesta ay nagbarikada sa mga kalsada at naghagis pa ng mga bato sa mga puwersa ng seguridad. Ayon sa isang lokal na newspaper, 1,500 na katao na ang sugatan at 47 na distrito ng bansa kasama na ang 100 pulis. Bukod sa kontrobersyal na mga kota, ang mga protesta ay pinagpapalala rin ng mga problemang pang-ekonomiya katulad ng mataas na inflation at tumataas na unemployment rate. Walang agarang pahayag ang gobyerno tungkol sa insidente. Subalit, sinabi ng mga pulis sa kabisera ng Dhaka na pinagbawalan na nila ang lahat ng pampublikong pagtitipon.
Tiniyak ng Taiwan na hindi sila aasa sa iba pa para depensahan ang kanilang teritoryo.
您提到的这个谈话，那我觉得一个重点是其实大家应该有共识，就是中国的威胁。在这一点上面，我想不管是拜登总统或者是川普前总统应该是有共识。我想这也是目前台湾就是跟世界的共识的专制。国家，所以习近平一个人，他现在。
Ito ang inihayag ni Foreign Minister Lin Chialong bilang pagtugon sa mga kritisismo mula kay Donald Trump kung saan sinabi nito na dapat umano silang bayaran ng Taiwan para sa depensa. Dagdag pa nito ay kinuha umano ng islang negosyong semiconductor ng Amerika. Walang formal na kasunduan ng Taiwan para sa depensa ng Estados Unidos tulad ng ginagawa ng Japan at South Korea mula noong winakasan ng Washington ang isang kasunduan sa Taipei noong 1979 nang ilipat nito ang diplomatikong pagkilala sa Beijing. Ang Estados Unidos ang pinakamahalagang international backer at supplier ng armas ng Taiwan. Sa kabila ng kakulangan ng formal na diplomatikong relasyon, ang Washington ay nakasalalay sa batas na magbigay ng paraan para sa depensa. Nang tanungin tungkol sa mga komento ni Trump, sinabi ni Lin sa mga dayuhang mamamahayag sa Taipei na binigyan lamang nila ito ng pansin at ang relasyon ng Taiwan-US ay binuo sa bipartisan na suporta na tinatamasa ng Taiwan sa Estados Unidos. Sa nakalipas na 8 taon, ang defense spending ng Taiwan ay dumoble hanggang ngayon na nasa 2.5% ng GDP at inaasahan din na patuloy itong tataas. Aniya ang lahat ng mga bansa ay dapat magsumikap dahil ang defense spending ng China ay tumataas din. Prioridad ngayon ng Taiwan ang modernisasyon ng kanilang depensa, kabilang na dito ang pagbuo ng sarili nitong mga submarines. Maraming beses nang sinabi ng gobyerno na ang seguridad ng isla ay nakasalalay sa sarili nitong depensa, lalo na sa pagtingin sa diplomatikong paghihiwalay ng Taipei.
也注意到美国前总统川普他的讲话，但是大家应该也清楚。 台美关系近几年来的状况是非常的坚定的。台海跟印太地区的和平稳定是我们共同的责任跟目标。
Samantala, sinabi ni Deputy Foreign Minister Sergei Ryabkov na hindi isinasantabi ng Russia ang posibilidad na mag-deploy ng mga nuclear missiles. Ito ay bilang tugon sa nakaplanong paglalagay ng mga long-range conventional weapons ng USA sa Germany. Ayon kay Ryabkov, pipilian ng Russia ang pinakamalawak na hanay ng mga oposisyon upang mabuo ang pinaka-epektibong tugon sa hakbang ng US. Dagdag pa niya, ang Kaliningrad na pinakakanlurang bahagi ng Russia na hiwalay sa lupain nito ay matagal nang nakakaakit ng atensyon mula sa kanilang mga kalaban. Noong nakaraang linggo, inanunsyo ng US na magsisimula sila mag-deploy sa Germany mula 2026 ng mga armas na kinabibilangan ng mga hypersonic missiles. Samantala, sinabi ni President ng Russia na si Vladimir Putin na magpo-produce muli ang Moscow ng short and intermediate range missiles at magpapasya kung saan ito ilalagay kung kinakailangan.
Muling nahalal bilang Pangulo ng European Commission si Ursula von der Leyen. Nakuha nito ang 401 members of the European Parliament sa botohan na ginanap sa Strasbourg. Si von der Leyen ay parte ng Center-Right European People's Party o EPP ay unang nahalal noong 2019. Dahil sa panalo ay muli itong magsisilbi ng panibagong 5 taon. Labis ang pasasalamat nito sa MEP dahil sa muling pagkahalal nito.
I will never let the extreme polarization of our societies become accepted. I will never accept that demagogues and extremists destroy our European way of life. And I stand here today ready to lead the fight with all the democratic forces in this House.
Sa kanyang confirmation speech ay nangako ito na makikipag-ugnayan siya sa lahat ng puwersang demokratiko sa Europa upang mapatumbang kanyang tinatawag na extremist groups and ideologies. Makakatuwang niya sina Antonio Costa na magsisilbing European Council Head at ang dating Prime Minister ng Estonia na ngayon nagsisilbi bilang Foreign Policy Chief na si Kaja Kallas.
We should always keep in mind a member state's border is a European border. And we will do everything we can to make them stronger. And this is part of the reason why we must strengthen Frontex, to make it more effective while fully respecting fundamental rights. I will propose to triple the number of European border and coast guards to 30,000. Europe has a responsibility to play an active role in the world, starting in our neighborhood, and in particular in the Middle East. I want to be very clear. The bloodshed in Gaza must stop now.
Sa kanyang acceptance speech para sa Republican presidential nomination, nanawagan si Donald Trump sa mga Amerikanong suportahan ang kanyang candidacy. Nagsalita siya ng higit ng 90 minuto at mapapansing sa mahabang panahon ng talumpati ay sinisisi niya ang immigrants sa mga problemang pang-ekonomiya at sosyal ng bansa. Ana Kuy para sa detalye.
Kakaibang panimula sa talumpati ang ibinigay ni Donald Trump ngayong Huwebes. Ilang araw matapos ang tangkang pagpatay sa kanya, sinabi ni Donald Trump na pupunitin niya ang orihinal niyang mensahe na anya ay agresibo at nangako ng mas malumanay na talumpati na magbubuklod sa bansa. Tinupad niya ang pangakong ito. Pinalikan ni Trump ang assassination attempt sa kanya at nakidalamhati sa namatay at mga nasaktan. Binanggit niya ang sistema ng hustisya at sinabing dapat tigilan ng Democrats ang paggamit dito bilang sandata. Pinuri niya si Judge Eileen Cannon na kanyang inappoint sa pag-dismiss nito ng kaso niya ukol sa classified documents. Ngunit sa pagpapatuloy ng kanyang talumpati, binilikan niya ang dati niyang mga tema. Bansang gumuguho, illegal immigrants na kumukuha ng trabaho mula sa Black at Hispanic populations, ang dinayang eleksyon at si Biden bilang pinakapalpak na Pangulo ng US.
But to achieve this future, we must first rescue our nation from failed and even incompetent leadership. We have totally incompetent leadership. This will be the most important election in the history of our country.
Nangako siyang ibabalik ang car manufacturing sa bansa, magpapataw ng taripa sa mga import, at wawakasan ng incentive sa paggawa ng electric vehicles. Binanggit niyang muli ang immigration at sinasabing kriminal ang migrants sa US. Anya, tatapusin na niya ang bangungot sa border, ngunit sinabing tatanggap ng mga migrante na papasok ng legal.
At the heart of the Republican platform is our pledge to end this border nightmare and fully restore the sacred and sovereign borders of the United States of America, and we're going to do that on day one. That means two things on day one, right? Drill, baby, drill, and close our borders.
Inakusahan ni Trump ang ibang bansa na pinadadala sa US ang mga kriminal nila upang bumaba ang krimen sa kanilang bayan. Nangako siyang maglulunsad ng pinakamalaking operasyon ng deportasyon sa kasaysayan ng US. Pinuri niya sina Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban at North Korean dictator Kim Jong-un.
I got along very well. North Korea, Kim Jong-un, I got along very well with him. The press hated when I said that. How could you get along with him? Well, you know, it's nice to get along with somebody who has a lot of nuclear weapons or otherwise, isn't it? See, in the old days, they say, that's a wonderful thing. Now they say, how could you possibly do that? But no, I got along with him, and we stopped the missile launches from North Korea. Now North Korea is acting up again, but when we get back, I get along with him. He'd like to see me back too. I think he misses me, if you want to know the truth.
Tinapos niya ang talumpati na sinasabing masyado ng matagal ang panahong ginugol ng Amerika sa pagbibigay sa iba. Panahon niya anya to make America great again. Samantala, ang kalaban ni Trump na si US President Joe Biden ay sinasabing maaari nang bumitaw sa laban. Ang kanyang mga kaalayansa, kasama na si dating Pangulong Barack Obama, ay sinasabing nagpahayag na ng pag-aalala kung kaya pa bang ipanalo ni Biden ang 2024 election. Sa kasalukuyan, naka-isolate ang 81-year-old na Democrat sa kanyang beach house sa Delaware at nagpapagaling sa COVID. Ayon sa US media, may mga balitang iniisip na ng Pangulo ang kahihinatnan ng kanyang pagtakbong muli sa gitna ng dumaraming oposisyon dito sa kanyang partido. Sa natitirang mahigit na 3 buwan na lamang bago ang eleksyon, 2 mapanubok na sitwasyon ang kinakaharap ng Democrats. Kung mananatili si Biden sa karera o ang masalimuot na paghahanap kung sino ang ipapalit nilang kandidato rito. Ana Cui para sa mata ng Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
Nagkaroon ang mga Democrats ng mahalagang hakbang upang piliting umatras si US President Joe Biden sa kanyang pagtakbo sa halalan sa pagkapangulo. Kasama na rito ang dating Pangulong si Barack Obama na nagpahayag ng mga alalahanin tungkol sa pagiging viable ng kampanya ni Biden. Ang impluwensya ni President Biden na maliit na bago pa man ang mga pagkakamali niya sa debate ay lalo pang lumiit nitong mga nagdaang araw. Siya ay umaasa sa ilang matagal ng mga aide habang tinitimbang kung siya ay susuko sa lumalaking pressure na umatras sa pagiging kandidato ng Democratic Party. Si Obama rin ay dumagdag sa mga ito na kamakailan lamang sinabi sa mga kaalyado na kailangan ni Biden na pag-isipang muli ang kanyang kandidatura. Samantala, sinabi rin ni Speaker Nancy Pelosi kay Biden na maaaring mawala ng kakayahan ang partido na kontrolin ng House of Representatives kung hindi siya aatras sa karera sa 2024.
Ikinagalit naman ni United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres ang pagboto ng Israeli Parliament laban sa pagbuo ng Palestinian state.
You can't vote away the two-state solution. So the Secretary General is disappointed by the decision of the Knesset to pass a motion opposing the establishment of a Palestinian state west of the Jordan River.
Sinabi nitong hindi basta nabubuwag ang isang estado sa pamamagitan lamang ng botohan. Ang nasabing hakbang ay lalong inilalayo ng Israel ang pagkakaroon ng mapayapang solusyon sa nagaganap na kaguluhan sa pagitan nila ng mga Palestino. Magugunitang makailang ulit na nanawagan ang UN ng mapayapang solusyon sa nagaganap na labanan sa Gaza.
Inako ng mga hungakali ang pag-atake na nagresulta sa pinakabagong mga drones ay kayang malampasan ang sistemang depensa sa himpapawid ng Israel. Subalit, sinabi ng isang opisyal ng militar ng Israel na ang insidente ay dahil sa human error at ang pagsusuri sa mga aerial threats ay hindi pa rin nagbabago.
Susunod, malakas na lindol tumama sa Chile.
International flight kinansela dahil sa IT outage.
And Paris nakahanda na para sa 2024 Paris Olympics. Mga detalye ng mga balita sa pagbabalik ng Mata ng Agila International.
This portion is brought to you by North Luzon Express Terminal.
Maraming magaganda sa Mindoro na hindi kailangan pumunta ng dagat. Devil's Mountain is there. Maraming kayo mapupuntahan sa Mindoro na napakaganda. So, I encourage everyone to check out Mindoro.
Sa loob ng 3 araw, plano namin ikutin ang magagandang lugar sa Mindoro. 619 na kilometro ang kabuoang layo ng aming mga daraanan. Tiyak na magiging masaya ang biyaheng ito ng motorismo dahil sa aming mga bagong kasama. Tuwing Sabado, 5 p.m. to 6 p.m.
Let's get together. SONA 25. SONA 25.
Dahil walang hinto ang balita.
Financial straits.
Mata ng Agila Weekend tuwing Sabado, alas 4 ng hapon. Ito ang Net 25. Matatag, matapang, matapak.
Let's get together. SONA 25. SONA 25.
Niyanig na malakas na 7.4 na lindol ang hilagang Chile malapit sa border nito sa Argentina. Ayon po yan sa ulat ng US Geological Survey. Batay sa datos ng ahensya, natagpuan ang epicenter ng lindol sa 45 kilometers timog silangan ng San Pedro de Atacama, Chile at may lalim ito na 117 kilometers. Nagulat ang lahat ng residente at mga turista sa lugar nang naramdaman nila ang pag-uga sa kanilang kinaroroonan. Ayon sa lokal na ulat, nagdulot ang lindol ang power outages sa mga establishmento. Ipinahayag ni Chilean President Gabriel Boric na patuloy na minomonitor ng kanyang gobyerno ang lugar kung saan tumama ang lindol. Tinukoy naman ni Boric na wala pang naiuulat na nasaktan o kaya ay malaking pinsala sa naging pagyanig ng lupa. Hindi naman nag-activate ng tsunami alarm ang Chilean government matapos ang nasabing lindol.
Sumabog ang isang resin factory sa Xiangshan Industrial Zone sa Taiwan nitong Huwebes. Sa kuhang ito, makikita ang abot-langit na apoy at usok sa nangyaring pagsabog ng nasabing pasilidad. Ayon sa local fire department ng Tainan, umabot ng 39 fire engines, 79 firefighters at firefighting robots ang ipinadala para maapula ang sunog. Ayon pa sa departamento, pinaghihinala ang methanol at toluene ang dahilan sa nakakapasong pangyayari sa factory. Agad namang na-evacuate ang paligid ng lugar habang wala namang nasaktan sa nangyaring insidente. Pinarusahan ang nasa 30 mga kabataan sa North Korea. Ito ay matapos silang mahuli na nanonood ng South Korean drama. Ayon sa mga otoridad, ang mga nasawing kabataan ay nasa middle school kung saan natagpuan ang isang USB. Ang nasabing USB ay naglalaman ng mga K-drama na ipinadala sa North Korea gamit ang mga lobo. Bukod rito, mahigpit na ipinagbabawal sa kanilang bansa ang panunood ng palabas mula sa ibang bansa na nasa ilalim ng Pyongyang's Reactionary Ideology and Culture Rejection Act of 2020. Haharap sa parusang pagkakakulong o di kaya'y kamatayan ang sinumang mahuhuli na may hawak o nagtatago ng mga bagay na may kaugnayan sa South Korean media. Samantala, patuloy ang ginagawang paghihigpit at pagbabantay ng mga otoridad sa dumaraming bilang ng mga kabataan na lumalabag sa batas.
Maraming international flights ang nakansela dahil sa isang global information technology or IT outage. Kabilang sa mga flights na naapektuhan ay ang sa Delta, United at American Airlines. Hindi pa naglabas ang Federal Aviation Administration kung kailan magiging operational ang mga flight systems. Ayon sa mga ulat, hindi lamang ang airline industry ang nagambala ng global IT outage dahil pati media, banking at healthcare systems ng iba't ibang bansa ay tinamaan ng problemang ito. Ang mga bangko at financial services firms mula sa Australia, India at Germany ay nag-issue rin ng disruption warning sa kanilang mga customers. Sa Pilipinas, ilan sa mga nag-ulat na ang kanilang mga banking systems ay nakararanas ng technical issue dahil sa nasabing global IT outage ay ang Union Bank, BPI at Metrobank. Maging ang Cebu Pacific at AirAsia Philippines ay nadali ng Microsoft global outage, kaya naman napilitan silang i-manual ang pagpoproseso ng kanilang systems. Sinabi ni Renato Paraiso, Assistant Secretary at Spokesperson ng Philippine Department of Information and Communications Technology, na minomonitor ng kanilang ahensya ang kasalukuyang software outage na nararanasan sa buong mundo. Nasungkit ng Google ang isang partnership para itanghal ang kanilang Gemini AI bilang search AI partner ng Team USA sa Paris Olympics. Makikita ang Gemini AI sa buong US broadcast ng Paris Olympics. Ayon sa naging deal, i-showcase ng Google ang lahat ng AI services nito katulad ng Gemini, AI Overviews, Circle to Search at iba pang mga tools katulad ng Google Lens at Google Maps sa buong event. Layon din ng kumpanya na gamitin ang AI tools nito sa isang special digital sightseeing tour sa Paris.
Samantala, ramdam na ang diwa ng 2024 Paris Olympics. Kasabay ng papalapit na pinakamalaking sporting event sa daigdig ay siya ring pag-lockdown ng Central Paris, lalo na ang mga lugar at kakalsadahan malapit sa paggaganapan ng mga laro. Marami na rin anya ang ipinakalat na puwersa ng kapulisan upang matiyak ang kaligtasan ng mga atleta, delegado, mga turista at gayon na rin ang mga manonood ng iba't ibang mga laro sa Olympics. Nagtalaga na ang gobyerno ng France ng road rerouting upang hindi maantalang daloy ng trapiko at gayon na rin ang transport services. Marami na ang mga dumating na atleta at mga koponan sa bansa para sa pag-iensayo at paghahanda na rin sa iba't ibang mga larangan ng palakasan na kanilang sasalihan. Pagdating naman sa mga venue ay 97% fully set na ang mga ito at kaunting preparasyon na lamang ang kanilang tinatapos, gaya na lamang ng pagsasabit ng mga posters para sa Olympics. Isa sa pinakamalaking venue na paggaganapan ng ilang sporting event, gaya na lamang ng track and field, football at iba pa, ay ang Stade de France na may Saint-Denis. Napakahalaga para sa France ang pagsasagawa ng 2024 Olympics sa Paris, lalo na't noon pang 1924 nang huling ganapin ang Olympics sa kanilang bansa.
Inamin ng American singer and songwriter na si Chappell Roan ang posible niyang pagtigil sa paggawa ng mga kanta. Ito ay dahil po sa dalampangganib ng kanyang pagsikat sa privacy at kaligtasan ng singer at ng kanyang pamilya. Sa isang podcast itong linggo, binanggit ng 26-year-old singer na kung sakali man na magkaroon ng stalker vibes ang kanyang mga fans, ay ititigil na nito ang paggawa ng mga kanta. Ayon pa kay Roan, ito ay dahil napapansin niyang daging delikado na ang mga fans kung saan alam na nila ang pinagtatrabahuhan ng kanyang kapatid at maging tirahan ng kanyang mga magulang. Matatandaang mas umusbong ang kasikatan nito matapos ma-release ang kanyang album na The Rise and Fall of a Midwest Princess noong nakaraang taon.
Sa Italy, isang zoo ang inaagapan mula sa pagkakasakit ng mga hayop dahil sa init. Frozen treats ang hain nila sa mga alaga habang binabalot na matinding heatwave ang kabiserang Rome. Si Jessica Bautista para sa report.
Upang huwag mauwi sa heat stroke ang mga hayop sa zoo ito ng Rome, frozen delights ang pinapakain sa mga tigre, unggoy, oso at iba pa. Nasa 38 degrees Celsius ang temperatura sa Italian capital kung kaya't nanganganib na mapahamak ang mga alaga dahil sa matinding init. Ayon kay Davide Morelli ng Bioparco di Roma, hydration ang isa sa precautionary measures laban sa heat stroke. Kung kaya't gumagawa sila ng fruit popsicles para ibigay sa mga hayop lalo na pag tirik na tirik ang araw.
Quindi con queste giornate calde dare un po' di refrigerio come ad esempio tramite ghiaccioli è sempre importante per mantenerli idratati e per mantenerli insomma abbastanza freschi, ecco. Allora abbiamo comunque costantemente, quotidianamente lo scarico di frutta fresca, ne teniamo un pochino da parte, la tagliamo in piccoli pezzettini, per i lemuri utilizziamo i barattoli piccoli degli yogurt, quindi sempre in base alla loro taglia, quindi per loro ghiacciolini più piccoli, per i cercocebi ad esempio ghiaccioli un po' più grandi, li congeliamo, li teniamo insomma ecco, nel congelatore e poi glieli forniamo quando sono pronti.
Dagdag ni Morelli, ikinatutuwa ito ng mga hayop na natural na humahanap ng lamig upang umiwas sa araw at sikat nito.
Sono sicuramente molto contenti di riceverli, anche ai lemuri ad esempio andiamo a stimolare anche quello che è un comportamento naturale, quindi il lappare, leccare per portarsi poi il cibo alla bocca, quindi tutto questo loro gradiscono sicuramente. Il colpo di calore è sempre ecco, un rischio, quindi nelle ore più calde sicuramente evitano il sole diretto, si mettono nelle aree all'ombra e quindi cercano poi il refrigerio da soli. Ecco, questo.
Jessica Bautista para sa mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
Nalalapit na ang pagsisimula ng 2024 Paris Olympic Games kung saan naging agaw pansin ang uniform na isusuot ng bansang Mongolia. Kamakailan lamang ay inilabas ng Mongolia ang uniform na susuotin ng mga atleta na kanilang gagamitin sa Olympics. Bumida sa pagbubukas ng Paris Olympics ang uniform na kinikilala bilang best outfit dahil sa nakatutuwang disenyo nito. Makikita rin kasuotan ang ilang detalye kagaya ng mga simbolo na kumakatawan sa kasaysayan ng bansang Mongolia. Kinilala naman ang fashion label na Michael or Michelle and Amazonka bilang designer na natatanging uniform. Samantala, ayon sa mga opisyal ng Mongolia ay ito na ang ikalawang beses na hinawakan ng fashion label ang paggawa sa uniform ng kanilang mga atleta.
Ang ganda. Oo. Alam mo, natutuwa ako kapag, lalo na itong mga panahon na to, the way they pay a lot of attention to yung mga uniform ng mga atleta. And a lot of the culture can be traced on yung fashion, di ba?
Yes.
Hindi siya basta lang functionality yung iniintindi, kundi pati yung look niya. Aesthetically, ang ganda. Yun.
At saka alam mo ba, I've been so lucky to go to Mongolia a few years ago.
Sana all.
Napakagandang lugar at yung mga tao talaga napakababait din. And ito, hindi na ako nagugulat na maganda yung uniform nila because they're super fashionable, Nina.
That's so
Napaka-fashionable
nice.
na mga Mongolians. And I'm excited kasi I think I'm going back there next year.
Ay, wow.
So, kukunan natin ng mga video naman. Gagawa tayo ng istorya tungkol sa Mongolians.
Ilagay mo na ako sa maleta, sasama ako. Ayan, excited na ako.
Excited ka na. Alam ko kung ba't ka excited. May sagot ka ngayon na knock-knock sa knock-knock ko last.
Okay, mag-recap tayo nung knock-knock mo nung huling Biyernes.
Kasi game. Tuwan-tuwa si Nina sa joke ko.
Gawin mo na maayos, ha?
Knock-knock.
Who's there?
Orange.
Orange who?
Orange, you glad it's the weekend?
Ayan. I am. Tapos meron akong panukling knock-knock dyan. Kaya tinarikol ko. Oo, knock-knock, Ricky.
Who's there?
Red.
Red who?
Ready na ako para sa weekend. Ayun, di ba?
Ayan.
Hindi kasi ako nakapagkulay, so binabawi natin.
Ano dalag natin? Kasalanan ko yan. Pero babawi rin ako next time.
Ayan.
Tignan natin kung anong uniform naman namin ni Nina sa darating na Lunes. Dahil syempre, inaabangan na ang special coverage ng Net25 News and Information sa parating na SONA, ikatlong SONA ng Pangulong Bongbong Marcos.
At syempre, bilang isang formal na okasyon, yan ay pinagdadamitan talaga natin. So, ayun.
So, abangan niyo po, starting at 2 p.m., wagla ng BBTO dito sa Net25. Dahil yan po ang ating special coverage all the way until, of course, midnight. Hanggang matapos, hanggat may balita, nandito lamang kami. At ready na rin si Direk Mads na mag-weekend na. Tama na daw ang joke time natin.
Excited na siya. Ready na rin siya.
Yan, at ready na rin.
Magba-black yan si Direk Mads over the weekend. Black lakin.
Wow.
In English, floral.
Bumabawi si Nina Alagad.
Ang dami, di ba? Yun na nga, eto na. Bit-bit ko, ang dami pa dito. Pero sige, i-save natin yan for the following Friday.
At tignan naman natin kung anong bit-bit ni Alma.
Tama.
Diba? Kung anong color naman ni Alma. Lagi namin inaabangan din talaga ni
diba?
Nina.
Kasi nakakatuwang makita na coordinated tayo.
Yes. So, bali, tandaan. Nako, weekend na pala. Ito syempre, like ko sinasabi, happy weekend everybody. Napakabilis ng araw. So, bali, tandaan mula Lunes hanggang Biyernes. Narito kami ni Nina para maghatid ng balita sa mangdako na mundo. Muli ako po si Ricky Mate wishing everybody a happy weekend.
Habang ako naman, si Nina Richie Alago Flores na nagwi-wish din ng happy weekend sa inyo pong lahat. Ito ang Mata ng Agila International. Para sa mga balitang nangyari sa iba't ibang panig ng mundo, punta naman tayo kay Alma Angeles para sa Net25 World News. Take it away, Alma.
Thanks, Nina and Ricky. Good evening, everyone. I'm Alma Angeles, and you're watching Net25 World News. On tonight's headlines, airlines, banks, TV channels, and other business across the globe were scrambling to deal with one of the biggest IT crashes in recent years on Friday, apparently caused by an update to an antivirus program. In Milwaukee, former President Trump delivered a major speech, his first since Saturday. The former president spoke for over 90 minutes. U.S. President Joe Biden is reportedly coming closer to dropping out of the White House race as allies, including Barack Obama, are said to have expressed concerns that he can no longer win the 2024 election. The news starts now. Airlines, banks, TV channels, and other business across the globe were scrambling to deal with one of the biggest IT crashes in recent years today, apparently caused by an update to an antivirus program. Now, major U.S. airlines initially grounded all flights over a communication issue, though American Airlines later said it had reinstated its flights. Airports across the world said check-in systems were down and services were being handled manually, with delays likely. Microsoft said in a technical update on its website that the problems began at 1900 GMT on Thursday, affecting users of its Azure cloud platform running cybersecurity software CrowdStrike Falcon. We recommend customers that are able to restore from a backup from before this time, the U.S. software giant said. CrowdStrike CEO George Kurtz said on social media platform X that customers had been impacted by a defect found in a single content update for Windows hosts. The issue has been identified, isolated, and a fix has been deployed, he said. Shares in CrowdStrike slumped by 20% in pre-market trading from Amsterdam to Zurich across all continents. Airports were reporting problems with their check-in systems.
It's unfortunate. It's everywhere. Can't do much about it. Just trying to get to my girlfriend in Brisbane. I haven't seen her in a while. So maybe just book a new flight with Virgin if possible.
And yeah, a lot of people are being impacted by this, so it would be a hard situation to kind of navigate, I guess. But it is, yeah, it's just frustrating. I kind of, yeah, wish I got travel insurance or whatever, really.
A drone claimed by Yemen's Houthi rebels penetrated Israel's renowned air defense system today, striking a Tel Aviv building near a U.S. Embassy annex and resulting in one fatality. According to Yahya Sari, the Iran-backed Yemeni movement spokesperson, the Houthis launched a new drone called Yafa, capable of evading interception systems.
سلاح الجو المسير في القوات المسلحة اليمنية بعون الله تعالى عملية عسكرية نوعية تمثلت في استهداف أحد الأهداف المهمة في منطقة يافا المحتلة ما يسمى إسرائيليا تل أبيب.
So early this morning, Israel police received a large amount of reports to the emergency dispatch center about an explosion that took place right here in the heart of Tel Aviv in a residential area. Emergency personnel, bomb disposal units, and patrol units came to the scene. We understood that we're talking about a large explosion. As you can see behind me, there's various buildings that were affected by the shrapnel of this explosion. We're talking about 10 casualties in various conditions that were evacuated to medical centers. And we are talking about, unfortunately, one fatality, a man in his 50s who was found in his apartment with shrapnel in his body.
Well, I heard an explosion, a very serious one, at about 3:15 or 3:20. I usually sleep in the hotel here with my window open. And I rushed out of bed to see what's going on.
I was dead asleep, and like I was saying, I came from Safat, so I know rocket sounds. And I would always sleep through the sirens and the rocket sounds. But this sound I never heard before. It woke me up because the vibration of the sound was like a 747 coming in, and then the explosion, just like everything blew out in the room, the windows and things from the ceiling, and it was on me, nothing heavy, but lots of pieces of stuff. And I was like, I jumped out of bed and came down, and I saw a fire here. I thought it hit here, whatever it was. But then as time went on, I found out it was a UAV. But
we had just come back from a party, and we were hanging out outside over here where people are standing now. And at some point we were really tired, so we came and we went to the vicinity here, the living room, closed the 2 double-bolted doors, and my friend was like, hey, what's that over there? It looks cool. I turn around, I hear this large, deafening buzz, like an F-35 or an F-15, but it was only roughly 40 meters above sea level. It didn't make sense. And then blast came in, heat from the back of my neck. I brought everyone down to the floor. From there, we brought them into the bunker. And thankfully, we left with our lives. Obviously, all of this stuff can be replaced, but the most important thing is we left with our lives. What's important to notice is that this is a residential area. It's not a military target.
An Israeli military official confirmed that a very big drone was used in the attack on Israel's commercial hub. The official attributed the failure to intercept the unmanned aerial vehicle, or UAV, to human error. Since November, the Houthis have conducted numerous drone and missile attacks on shipping in the Red Sea and Gulf of Aden, framing these actions as solidarity with Palestinians amidst the Israel-Hamas conflict in Gaza. Although the Houthis have previously claimed attacks on Israeli cities such as Eilat, Ashdod, and Haifa, Friday's incident marks the first successful breach of Israel's sophisticated air defenses by the rebels. Following the attack, Defense Minister Yoav Gallant, after consulting with IDF officials, vowed that Israel would respond to the deadly Houthi drone strike on Tel Aviv. In Milwaukee, former President Trump delivered a major speech in his first since Saturday. The former president spoke for over 90 minutes. Thomas I. Likeness for more.
It was a different kind of speech for Trump, at least in the beginning. Following the attempt on his life last weekend, Trump had said he'd ripped up his original address, which he described as more aggressive, and promised a softer speech for the convention that would unite the country. Well, he delivered on that promise, toning down his delivery, sounding very subdued. He recounted the attempt on his life and expressed sympathy for those killed and wounded.
I said to myself, wow, what was that? It can only be a bullet. And moved my right hand to my ear, brought it down. My hand was covered with blood, just absolutely blood all over the place. I immediately knew it was very serious, that we were under attack, and in one movement proceeded to drop to the ground. Bullets were continuing to fly. as very brave Secret Service agents rushed to the stage, and they really did. They rushed to the stage.
He then turned to the justice system, saying the Democrats should stop weaponizing it.
And we must not criminalize dissent or demonize political disagreement, which is what's been happening in our country lately at a level that nobody has ever seen before.
He praised Judge Eileen Cannon, who he appointed, for dismissing his classified documents case. But as Trump rambled on, he returned to his usual themes: a nation in decline, illegal immigrants taking jobs from the black and Hispanic populations.
At the heart of the Republican platform is our pledge to end this border nightmare and fully restore the sacred and sovereign borders of the United States of America, and we're going to do that on day one. That means two things on day one, right? Drill, baby, drill, and close our borders.
The last election being rigged, and Biden being the worst president the U.S. has ever seen.
But to achieve this future, we must first rescue our nation from failed and even incompetent leadership. We have totally incompetent leadership. This will be the most important election in the history of our country.
Trump says the war in Ukraine would not have happened had he been president, and he says he will end that war, but doesn't provide any details. The speech was laden with platitudes about how he will make America a great nation again.
And quite simply put, we will very quickly make America great again.
But again, offered no specifics on how he plans to achieve his goals. He promised to bring car manufacturing back to the U.S., put big tariffs on imports, and end incentives to build electric vehicles. Trump then returned to the subject of immigration, again portraying migrants as criminals who are overrunning the country. He says he will end what he calls the border nightmare, calling it an invasion.
I will end the illegal immigration crisis by closing our border and finishing the wall, most of which I've already built.
He then turned to another theme, praising dictators and strongmen. He spoke highly of Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban and North Korean dictator Kim Jong-un.
I got along very well. North Korea, Kim Jong-un, I got along very well with him. The press hated when I said that. How could you get along with him? Well, you know, it's nice to get along with somebody who has a lot of nuclear weapons or otherwise, isn't it? See, in the old days, they'd say, that's a wonderful thing. Now they say, how can you possibly do that? But no, I got along with them, and we stopped the missile launches from North Korea. Now North Korea's acting up again, but when we get back, I get along with them. He'd like to see me back, too. I think he misses me, if you want to know the truth.
Trump concluded by saying, for too long, America has given too much to everyone else, and that it is time to make America great again. Trump told the crowd he will never let them down. Meanwhile, Trump's rival, U.S. President Joe Biden, is reportedly coming closer to dropping out of the race. Allies, including Barack Obama, are said to have expressed concerns that he can no longer win the 2024 election. The 81-year-old Democrat is holed up at his beach house recovering from COVID. Multiple U.S. media reports say he's considering the future of his re-election bid amid mounting opposition within his party. With a little more than 3 months before the election, the Democrats could find themselves in a nearly impossible position to win, whether Biden stays in or whether they have the challenge of introducing a new candidate to voters. Thomas I. Likeness, Net 25 World News.
And joining us now is our North American correspondent, Thomas I. Likeness, with more on former President Donald Trump's speech and his official nomination as the Republican presidential candidate. Thomas, what was your take on the speech? Do you think it will attract new voters to his campaign?
Good evening, Alma. This speech is something like a dictator from the past. You know, Fidel Castro, Nikita Khrushchev, something like they would have given. Long, rambling. This one went on for an hour and a half. It started out low energy, but turned into just another Trump rally. If the purpose was to attract new support from the undecideds, well, I think Trump failed. There was little of substance in the address. He offered no concrete ideas on how he would achieve his goals. An example, he says he would end the Russia-Ukraine war, but doesn't say how. He says he'll improve the economy, get rid of inflation, but again, no suggestion of how he will accomplish that. Much of the speech centered on immigrants, whom he blames for countless social problems and the crime rate in the United States. Trump also retreated into a couple of other areas of his comfort zone, his admiration of dictators and how the 2020 election was stolen. Again, the speech itself ran for more than 90 minutes, and that's the longest in U.S. convention history. It's hard to say how many people watched the whole thing on television because, again, it was long and tedious and not something that kept people on the edge of their seats. Alma?
Thank you, Thomas, for that detailed analysis. We appreciate your insights on former President Trump's speech and its potential impact on his campaign. We'll continue to follow this story closely. Now, while President Biden is isolating in Delaware after testing positive for COVID-19, his re-election campaign appears to be under significant pressure. The New York Times cited several people close to Biden as saying they believe he has begun to accept that he may lose in November to Republican rival Donald Trump and may have to drop out, with one quoted as saying, "Reality is setting in." Former President Obama, meanwhile, had told allies that Biden should seriously consider the viability of his candidacy. The Washington Post reported his office did not comment. Influential former House Speaker Nancy Pelosi added to his woes by privately telling Biden he cannot win and could harm Democrats' chances of recapturing the lower chamber, CNN and the New York Times reported. Meanwhile, Vice President Harris, campaigning in North Carolina, countered the narrative by arguing that it is the GOP, not the Democrats, that is divided.
In recent days, they've been trying to portray themselves as the party of unity. But here's the thing. If you claim to stand for unity, you need to do more than just use the word. You cannot claim you stand for unity if you are pushing an agenda that deprives whole groups of Americans of basic freedoms, opportunity, and dignity.
We'll be back with more news right after this break.
Plug and connect into the future of on-demand and on-the-go charging with a promising tech company, ConnectPH. We'll hear how this innovative company is reshaping the way we power up on the go. Let's learn more from Martin James Arada, the Assistant General Manager of ConnectPH, about their exciting concept that is charging up the industry.
To bring a technology where people, they will feel assured na parang kahit malubat ako, meron akong battery. There's an emergency, I can get, source of power.
Open for business with Cesar Vallejos, Sunday, 9 p.m.
Sunday 25.
Ang mga maiinit na balita at rumaratsyad ng usapan ng bayan, ihahatid namin sa 100%! 100%
ang pagbabalita!
100% talakayan!
Lunes hanggang Biyernes!
Alas 5 hanggang alas 7 ng umaga!
Live na live sa Radyo Agila 1062 Mega Manila!
At sa Net 25! 100%!
Sunday 25. Let's get together. Sunday 25.
Welcome back. Mexican authorities have launched an investigation after tons of dead fish surfaced on the banks of the Santiago River in western Mexico. As you can see, thousands of dead fish rotting on the shores of this river in the western state of Jalisco. And local residents are furious that this one-time tourist attraction and source of clean drinking water has been fouled. They blame the problem on factories located upstream. About 250 companies manufacture a variety of goods, including products for the automotive and food industries. Those factories discharge their waste, much of it chemical, into the river. And previously, that led authorities to prohibit fishing. Jalisco state authorities have said that an investigation into the cause of the mass death is now underway. And for now, locals have to live with the foul-smelling mess. Hong Kong microbiologist Dr. Yuen Kwok Yung has been on the front lines of some of the world's deadliest disasters or deadliest diseases, including SARS, which he helped identify. And now he's issuing a chilling warning. Another pandemic is coming, and it could be even worse than COVID-19. Dr. Yuen, often called Hong Kong's answer to Dr. Anthony Fauci, says the world is dangerously unprepared for the next global health crisis. While world leaders are focused on their own countries, Dr. Yuen believes a rapidly changing climate and emerging diseases should be top priorities.
Why I make such a horrifying prediction? It's because you can see clearly that the geopolitical, economic, and climatic changes are changing so rapidly. And while at the same time, everyone is still focusing on their national or regional interest.
Dr. Yuen's career has been marked by both triumphs and challenges, and he led the team that isolated the SARS virus in 2003, a breakthrough that helped contain the outbreak. But the COVID-19 pandemic tested his resilience. And despite Hong Kong's strict COVID-19 measures, the city suffered over 13,000 deaths.
Right, so if you multiply what happened in 1918, our population, global population, has basically now at least 3 to 4 times that in 1918. The upper estimate is 100 million deaths in 1918. This time it may be 400 million people died. That is a really horrendous number. And I hope that governments will really take on these challenges.
Understanding the origins of the COVID-19 is crucial for preventing future pandemics, Dr. Yuen says, and he's also calling for increased international cooperation.
So I still think that at this stage in time, it's important to properly do an investigation in a very open, transparent manner so that you learn the lessons, so that you know what to do next.
As the world braces for the next pandemic, Dr. Yuen Kwok Yung remains a vigilant guardian of public health.
So I have never thought of leaving Hong Kong myself because I'm born here, I'm educated here, I grow up here, I work here, I'm going to die here. I must say that I was very fortunate to be born during the best time of Hong Kong, grow up and educated during the best time, and work here at its best time. And I must say that I'm very privileged to have made some contributions during Hong Kong's worst.
In the past 24 hours, Ukraine has received a mix of both positive and negative news. First, the good news. Ukrainian President Zelensky is in the UK for a European Community Summit hosted by Britain's new Prime Minister, Keir Starmer. Starmer has gone to great lengths to assure Zelensky of Britain's continued support.
Now, we need to be clear. Ukraine is fighting not just for the Ukrainian people, though of course it is, but for the European people, for freedom, democracy and the rule of law. And our security, therefore, starts in Ukraine. So we pledge to President Zelensky once again that we will stand with Ukraine for as long as it takes.
This must be reassuring for Zelensky, who has recently been hearing unsettling signals from Western allies about possible abandonment, particularly from the U.S. With Donald Trump's potential return to the White House becoming more likely, especially after a recent attempt on his life, there's growing concern. Trump has been clear about his intentions to cut off funding for Kiev and push for negotiations between Ukraine and Russia. Adding to this uncertainty, Trump has selected J.D. Vance as his running mate, a known skeptic of Ukraine. And this shift could threaten the crucial American support Ukraine relies on, potentially jeopardizing its ability to counter Russia's advances.
I think Zelensky is maybe the greatest salesman of any politician that's ever lived. Every time he comes to our country, he walks away with $60 billion. And I like him. You know, on the impeachment hoax #1, he was very good. He said, no, the president didn't threaten me at all. He could have been a grandstander and said, I was threatened, right, Matt? He could have said, I was threatened. So I like him. But he's the greatest salesman of all time.
The situation for Ukraine worsened with news from Germany. The German government recently approved its 2025 budget, revealing a significant cut in aid to Kiev. While Germany allocated approximately $8.7 billion for Ukraine in 2024, it has halved this amount for 2025.
Expect every member state to be compliant with our fiscal rules. It's in our best common interest to maintain sustainability of our public debt. But what we see is that we are making progress fighting inflation. One of our top priorities, we want to see progress there, and this is much more important than always considering further public debt and mutualization of public debt.
Germany has long been criticized for underinvesting in its military, and this may become increasingly problematic, especially with Trump's potential return to the presidency. This reduction in aid is a serious setback for Kiev, and if other NATO countries follow Germany's lead, Ukraine's situation could become even more precarious. The pressing question now is how long Ukraine endure if support continues to dwindle. Russia Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov stated that Russia is ready for negotiations in Ukraine. However, he emphasized that before signing any agreement, Russia will scrutinize the wording very carefully to protect the document from repeated, unscrupulous, non-binding clauses and malicious interpretations. Speaking to reporters in New York, Lavrov described the so-called Zelensky plan as having the distinct form of an ultimatum, calling it unacceptable.
They've taken a course towards pushing by any means the so-called Zelensky's plans, which to a large extent looks like an ultimatum. And my Swiss counterpart warned me back in January that after that they would hold a peace summit, but it was not a summit per se, it was a peace conference. Yes, it was attended by a number of leaders, but most of those who came to the conference were represented at a lower level. One thing that is certain is Zelensky's formula is unacceptable, and everyone knows that, but still this formula underlies all of the proposals. So, speaking about peace attempts, for some reason, everyone is speaking about Bergenstock alone. No one speaks about China's initiative, even though there has been several initiatives coming from China at the beginning of this year, and then later there were some other initiatives. Just recently, China, together with Brazil, came up with new elements of this initiative. I'm not going to enumerate them, but the main difference from Zelensky's formula and from what is happening during the Copenhagen format consists in the following. To start with, China, Brazil, and many other countries that have joined them call for a conference based on the principles and fundamentals that are going to be acceptable to all parties. Secondly, with regard to the substance of the dialogue, China, during its first initiative, said clearly that attention had to be given to the original root causes of the current crisis in Europe. And
I heard the same thing you did. He's in favor of peace, in favor of ending the assistance that's been provided, and we can only welcome that because that's what we need to stop pumping Ukraine full of weapons, and then the war will end.
Asked about the upcoming elections in the U.S., the Russian official said,
irrespective of his mindset at the time, during the Trump period, the sanctions war began. Obama began this war. Let's state that for to be fair. But under Trump, there were more and more sanctions that were imposed. Economic sanctions, diplomatic sanctions were imposed. However, at that time, as I mentioned already, dialogue was underway between us and Washington at the highest levels. So I'll reiterate that, and Putin mentioned this repeatedly, we will work with any American leader. We will remain ready to work with any U.S. leader who the U.S. people elect and which the leader will be willing to engage in equitable, mutually respectful dialogue. I wish to recall once again what I stated during the Trump administration. Despite the very serious sanctions, there was still dialogue underway. And this is useful in any case. If you read yesterday, perhaps you heard the foreign minister of Hungary, Peter Szijjártó, spoke. And a great deal of his statement was dedicated to the way virtually all the rest of the European Union is beginning to engage in acts of sabotage and boycotting the events of the Hungarian chairmanship because Viktor Orban traveled to Russia and China and because he is advocating for peace. That is shocking. The European Union, which was established in order to ensure the well-being, prosperity, and stability of all of its members, has now completely morphed into an appendage of NATO. And just as aggressively, and perhaps even more aggressively, there are demands for Russia to be vanquished. What kind of strategic dialogue is this?
Opponents of Myanmar's junta launched a rocket attack on an airport in the capital but caused no casualties, security sources told AFP after a rare breach of the military seat of power. The military's ouster of Aung San Suu Kyi's government in a 2021 coup sparked renewed fighting with ethnic minority armed groups as well as with pro-democracy People's Defense Forces. Now, 2 rockets had targeted Naypyidaw Airport on Tuesday morning. A security source told AFP on condition of anonymity. 2 other security sources said 1 rocket had been launched at the airport. All 3 sources said the rockets had caused no casualties or major damage. Outgunned and outnumbered, opponents of the junta have increasingly taken drones into their arsenal with devastating effect. Many groups operate commercial drones adapted to carry bombs that can be dropped on military positions. Electric vehicles are taking center stage at the Gaikindo Indonesia International Auto Show 2024 in Tangerang. The buzz around electric mobility is palpable as attendees like Darul, a businessman, seek out the latest advancements.
Saya hampir rutin ya kalau kegiatan GIAS itu saya selalu hadir. Jadi selain saya bisa tahu perkembangan mobil-mobil yang ada, baik itu yang konvensional maupun yang EV, alhamdulillah jadi banyak pilihan-pilihan yang bisa kita ambil dan bisa kita putuskan. Sekarang saya mau ganti gitu, karena ya ngelihat perkembangan EV itu dari range-nya, dari kapasitas baterainya yang untuk bisa jarak jauh, itu saya tujuan untuk beralih ke EV yang lebih baik lagi.
Memang kami dalam misi sejak tahun 2020, kami terus mengembangkan mobil listrik di Indonesia. Bahkan kami merupakan first mover di industri mobil listrik karena kita yang memperkenalkan pertama kali mobil listrik di Indonesia. Dan kali ini kita membawa all new Kona Electric yang juga menggunakan baterai lokal di Indonesia. Pertama di Indonesia, Motor Corporation melihat bahwa pasar otomotif di Indonesia itu sangat potensial karena kita punya 270 juta populasi dan itu merupakan populasi yang sangat produktif sehingga bisa memiliki daya beli untuk mobil listrik di Indonesia yang cukup besar dan tidak hanya itu tapi juga terbesar di wilayah ASEAN.
Poin-poin ya untuk pembelian merchandise.
And that's it for tonight's broadcast. For everyone here on Net 25, I'm Alma Angeles. Thank you for joining us. Have a great weekend. Good night.